Today is Wednesday, so that means it would have been Leo's first game, so that means it's CJ's story. Mr. CJ, what kind of story do you want?
I would like a story about
Everybody in the world fell asleep.
no.
Oh, no. Nobody in the world fell asleep. Nobody in the world can sleep?
No.
Oh. Many people in the world fell asleep, but none of them because CJ was taking so long to find out what story he wanted.
Okay. So Elvie and the Siege going to Leap City.
Okay.
Is resuming to try and find out what honey means.
Okay. So, where we last left off, Elvie and the Siege wanted to have honey for breakfast, but in order to have honey, they needed to know what honey was. And so they set out on an adventure. But before their adventure, they needed a breakfast, and they decided to eat honey for breakfast. And so they needed to go out on an adventure before that. And they finally came back from that first adventure and they knew what honey was. But before they could eat any, they had to do the first adventure that they had set out on, which was to find out what is honey. And Elvie and the Siege kind of walked through the overworld a little bit, not really sure what was going on. And Elvie said, "Didn't we just figure out what honey was?" And the Siege said, "Yeah, but we said we were going to do this, so now we have to go and find out what honey is." Said Elvie. "That's going to be really super duper hard to find out what something is if you already know it." The Siege said, "Yeah, I know." And then Elvie said, "You know my name is Elvie, right?" And the Siege said, "Yeah." And then Elvie said, "Okay, try to figure out that my name is Elvie." The Siege is like, I can't do it because I already know your name. And Elvie was like, "See?" And the Siege was like, "Oh no, what are we going to do? We have to find out what honey is, but we already know what honey is."
What?
And Elvie said, "Well, that's what happened."
No.
And Elvie said, "Okay, I'm sure there's a way out of this. Let's think logically." The Siege said, "Okay, what does that mean?" And Elvie said, "I don't know, but people do it all the time, and it really works for them." And the Siege said, "Okay, well, before we go off and wonder what thinking logically is, let's just think this through." And Elvie said, "That's a much better idea." And so Elvie said, "Now, if we were..." "No, what are you doing? No, you're not to do that, okay?
Okay.
All right, lay down on your back maybe, and just be a normal little fun little guy. Not fidgeting. Okay, there you go." And Elvie said, "If we could forget what honey was, then we could go out and find what it was." And the Siege said, "That's a pretty good idea." And Elvie said, "Or if honey suddenly changed into something else, then we would have only known what honey used to be." And the Siege said, "But how would we change honey into something else?" And Elvie said, "I don't know." And Elvie said, "We could also build a time machine and go back in time and then rediscover what honey was, even though we already knew what it was." And the Siege said, "Now there's another great idea. You're really coming up with them." And Elvie said, "Yeah. And I think those are our only options." And the Siege said, "Okay, 1, go back in a time machine. 2, change the meaning of honey. 3, forget that we ever knew what honey was." And Elvie said, or 4, we were mistaken about thinking what honey was. The seed said, that's pretty good. But if we were mistaken about what honey was, we could have never tasted it. So that's kind of like, it has to be something else now. And Elvie said, like a fire hydrant. And the seed said, yeah, honey could end up being a fire hydrant. Then we eat one for breakfast. And Elvie said, no, that's ouchy. I don't want to eat a fire hydrant for breakfast. And the seed said, well, what do you want to eat? And Elvie said, well, honey. And the seed said, oh no, if you want to eat honey for breakfast, we can't have honey turn into something else. And Elvie said, okay, that only leaves 2 more choices. And the seed said, okay, remind me of those choices again. And Elvie said, either we forget what honey was, or we build a time machine and go back in time and rediscover what honey was. And the seed said, okay, but I don't want to build a time machine, go back in time, and then I can't rediscover what it is, because that would be a really big waste of time. And Elvie said, that would be a waste of time, like the time we spent to make a time machine, plus the time that we went backwards in when we used the time machine. And the seed said, my brains are getting fried. And Elvie said, I need to forget what honey is so I can remember. And the seed said, I know what to do. And Elvie said, what? And the seed said, we can't really build a time machine. It's too expensive, takes too long, and who knows if it's going to work or not. Even if it did work, who knows if we're going to go back and rediscover honey. And Elvie said, yeah, we'll go back, there will be, and then we'll have to fight ourselves to figure out who knows what honey is. And the seed said, you know what? My brains are getting fried too. And Elvie said, that's awesome. And Elvie said, what was that thing you said? And the seed said, what do you mean? And Elvie said, you just said a word or something. And the seed said, I think I was going to say some idea. And Elvie said, what was it? And the seed said, oh, I don't remember. And Elvie said, it's working. We're forgetting stuff. And the seed was like, yeah, how do we fry our brains? And Elvie said, I think we thunk. And the seed said, we thunk and thunk? We thunk too much? And Elvie said, yeah. And the seed said, I think that was going to be my idea. Elvie said, okay, now what were we trying to forget? And the seed said, I can't remember. And Elvie said, I don't remember either what we were trying to forget. And the seed said, I'm going to try to remember what we were trying to forget. I can't do it. And Elvie said, okay, don't panic. I'm going to try to remember what we were trying to forget. I can't do it either. And the seed said, whatever we were trying to forget, we forgot it.
You okay, Leo? Yeah. Okay.
And Elvie said, that's amazing. We totally forgot what we were trying to forget. And the seed said, I can't even remember what we were trying to forget. And Elvie said, I know. So much awesome. And the seed said, okay, now, what are we supposed to be doing? And Elvie said, let's see, we got up in the morning, we wanted to eat some honey, and then something happened. And the seed said, oh, we didn't know what honey was. And Elvie said, yeah, I remember now. We didn't know what honey was. And now we got to find out what honey is. And the seed said, that's great. And so they went to Herobrine's mansion. They knocked on the door. Herobrine answered. She said, what are you doing here? Again? And Elvie said, again? We haven't been here in months. And Fat Herobrine came up and said, "Rah!" And then Herobrine showed up and said, you've got a lot of nerve coming here, especially after fighting me and losing. Elvie said, we didn't fight you. And Herobrine said, uh-oh, it's that clones again. Elvie said, okay, whatever. We just want to know what honey is. And her Roberney said, that's what your clones said. And the Siege said, what's a clone? And Elvie said, you don't know what a clone is? And the Siege said, no. Elvie said, I think you forgot too much. The Siege said, too much what? And Elvie said, just too much of your brain, you forgot. And the Siege said, I better start remembering stuff. And Elvie said, well, we need to go to the Annoyinger villagers. Bye. And they arrived there. And the Annoyinger villagers were like, hi again. And Elvie was like, again. Our clones must have come here too. And the Siege said, what's a clone? Clone. And all the villagers started saying, clone. And Elvie said, that's a clone. And the Siege said, oh, it's Attack of the Clones. And so they left. And they finally went to Meep City. And there was the kiosk lady, the information lady in her kiosk. And Elvie said, what's honey? And she said, I'm honey? And the Siege said, phew, let's eat this lady for breakfast finally. She said, no, you can't eat me. And Elvie said, I think we've been here before. And the Siege said, no, you can't remember. And Elvie said, oh yeah, we haven't been here before. And she said, oh yeah, you were just here asking about honey again. And Elvie said, I don't remember that. She said, oh, you guys must be clones. And then Spaceship Mario came. They got on it and went to the bee galaxy, where they turned into bees and found out what honey was. For the first time in their lives.
Then they ate it.
Or so they thought. And then they ate it. The end.
That was chapter 2.
Okay, turn it off. Who is it? Siege. Oh, what's the name of it?
It's called chapter 2
Of whatever that other one was called.
of discovering honey.
Okay.
Chapter called Rediscovering Honey.
Okay.